Welcome to episode number 11 of the Retro Gaming Roundtable. And before we get started on our topic tonight, let me introduce the rest of the roundtable. We have a special guest on today's show, and that is Chris from the Real Bit Wars. Chris, welcome to the show, man. Ooh.
Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me.
That's sharp.
Thanks for joining.
We've got Jason from the Kinda Cool YouTube channel. And we've got Dad Racer. We got Mark from the Dad Racer YouTube channel. All right. I like that cut. And we've got the Game Shark, Lyndon from Old School Games and Stories. Man, I don't know. This is supposed to be non-violent on YouTube, man. So today's topic, we're going to talk about the console wars. We're going to kind of remember the console wars, but we also want to hear from you guys. Tell us your memories of when you went through the console wars. What were your greatest memories of the console wars? But before we get started on that, we've got some YouTube shout outs to do. And I'm going to kind of kick this one off. I want to shout out Generation Pixel. This is a YouTube channel. He's been shouted out on this show before, but it's really cool because we have somebody on the roundtable today that is nominated for YouTuber of the Month on the Generation Pixel channel. Yeah,
I'm not worthy.
You are worthy, sir.
Yeah, way to go, Mark.
And that is Dad Racer. You bet, man. It's awesome. So you know what, guys? I know you love Dad Racer's content, man. Head over to Generation Pixel and give him a vote. Let's vote, man. You couldn't vote for a better dude. So
thanks so much. The other guys they're all great guys. And, quite an honor to be included in that. Not worthy, but thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Dude, you're worthy. Your content is golden, man. Everybody loves your channel, and I think that would be a really cool thing. So if you guys love Dad Racer, head over there and vote. Retro Ed UK nominated you, man.
Yeah.
So
what he is.
Yeah. That was cool, man. Good dude. And check out his channel too.
Absolutely.
But we're gonna throw this over to Chris. Chris, do you got a shout out for us today? The YouTube channel?
Yes, I do. I would like to shout out Back in the Day Gamer. He is a guy that has some of the most unique pickup videos I've ever seen. He does stuff in like the freezing rain or 3 feet of snow. He also has this show called What's Happening YouTube, where he shares the games that he's been playing, music he's been listening to and stuff. I had the pleasure of meeting him in person at the Midwest Gaming Classic last year. He's very nice. I hope we get a chance to hang out at the MGC again this year. So Back in the Day Gamer, check him out.
Cool. Dude, that's cool. I've been subscribed to his channel for a long time. He is one of the coolest dudes on YouTube, man.
Yeah.
Jason, you got a shout out?
Yeah, not to be confused with Back in the Day Gaming, right?
Right.
Yeah, check that channel out too.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
Both of them are good. Yeah,
that's right.
So my shout out this time around is going to be Juliet India Mobile, and I'm not sure exactly where that name comes from because I don't think he's from India, and I don't think he has anything to do with mobile products. But what he does have a lot to do with is a lot of good retro gaming stuff, and he's one of those guys, kind of like, do you ever come across those YouTube channels where you feel like, wow, that guy really collects like me and plays like me and has gaming sensibilities like me? I felt like when I saw his channel for the first time, that happened to me, right? And I've kind of had that happen to me again, or previously on other channels as well. So you think about Splatterhouse, I know I called him out before. It's one of those ones where you don't want to fill your whole queue up with people like that, but it's refreshing every now and then to have one of those guys that kind of collects and plays like you. He's into, ODEs and EverDrives and flash carts and those types of things. Really well-rounded, knowledgeable guy. And he's really handy with the soldering iron too. He's been doing some repairs for like some game gears and things like that recently. Really cool videos. So stop by, give his channel a watch. It's Juliet India Mobile.
Great shout out. Great. Mark, you got a shout out for us today?
Of course. My shout out is a channel called Value My Gaming with an exclamation point. And he's relatively new. He's got, I don't know, maybe a dozen videos out there. I don't know how I came across this. YouTube is such an amazing platform with billions of content creators. And, you just come across somebody, they're brand new and instantly entertained. He does a lot of videos of, it talks about a game and what what might this game be worth, you know, in the future? Literally, value my gaming. And he kind of speculates on things like that. He also takes you on game hunting type of videos, takes you along for the ride with him. I enjoy that stuff as well. So highly recommend checking him out if that's your cup of tea. Value my gaming.
That's awesome. Great shout out. All right, Game Shark. Lyndon, you got a you got a shout out for us?
I sure do. Another one of our friends from the UK, Arcade Sunday. If you're into the old school arcade games and building your own arcades, this is the guy to check out. I think he's got 3, maybe 4 of his own arcade cabinets that he has built, and they're loaded down with everything. It may be a cabinet of a certain game, but it's got a bunch of stuff on it. That's awesome. And every Sunday he does Let's Play videos with one of the old arcade games. And he's done videos talking about how he put each one together. And he's done videos on repairing them when things go wrong, which is just way over my head, but still fun to watch. So go check him out if you're into the old school arcade games. Again, that's Arcade Sunday.
Nice.
Good channel.
That's a perfect shout out. That's awesome. I think all of us may have spent some time in the arcades back in the day. I don't know. So yeah, good shout out.
Just a little bit.
All right. So we're going to talk about today's topic, and that is the console wars. And I'm not sure what side you guys fell on, you know, Nintendo, Genesis, TurboGrafx 16 during the console war. I have no idea.
I sense sarcasm.
But we're going to start with Chris. So Chris, give us some of the memories that you had during the console wars, and what side did you fall on, man?
I was a Nintendo guy. No. Still am. So I do have a kind of specific story to tell. When right around the time the Super Nintendo was released, there was this shopping center that opened up about a block from my house. And it was kind of a big deal in the small town I grew up in. And the reason why that was noteworthy is they had a rental store inside this grocery store there, and they had a large selection of Super Nintendo games. So that kind of became my resource for getting all of that stuff. My friends and I would go in there, we would split up and walk up and down the aisles, looking at the back of the boxes. We always wanted those words, 2 players simultaneous. That's something I think kind of gets lost. The Super Nintendo is actually a pretty good 2-player experience with a lot of those games. And if we couldn't find anything new that we hadn't tried, we had those go-to games like Lost Vikings or Goof Troop or whatever, where you could play 2-player co-op. And if all else fails, you just go for the fighting games or the racing games, and you'd compete against one another. And another thing that they had at that grocery store was magazines. And despite the fact that I was a Nintendo guy, I never once as a child got a Nintendo Power. It was always Game Pro or EGM, because believe it or not, I wanted to know what Sega was doing. I didn't have a Genesis. None of my friends did, but I just wanted to see what kind of games they had, because I just really enjoyed the 16-bit graphics. To this day, that's my favorite era of gaming. It's what I like the most. And so buying those magazines, I had Nintendo and Sega posters hanging up all over in my room as a kid, you know. And I think, you know, as retro collectors, we're a little too quick to forget how similar the two are. We look at them through a microscope and we want to judge the other one. But what I love about the Super Nintendo is I just think the looks and sounds and everything are amazing. But what I like about the Genesis is it reminds me of the Super Nintendo. And as a collector, the first console I collected for was the Super Nintendo, then the NES. But after that, it was the Genesis and the TurboGrafx. So to this day, the 16-bit stuff is what I adore the most. So
that's awesome.
How about you, Jason?
Well, this is a cool topic, first of all, because I think it's like a critically, hugely important time period for all of gaming. You know, and there's arguments about when the console wars actually ended. I think it's pretty generally accepted that they started in '89 with the launch of the Genesis, right? That was kind of like the opening shot in the war right there, when Nintendo was kind of served notice that Sega wasn't going to be happy being number 2 and just content with that, right? So it started in 89, and I kind of put it all the way through about 99 is where I say that it ended, right? Some people say mid 90s, but it was really hot there in the mid 90s. And I remember having to make my decision. And I was kind of like you, Chris. I was a Nintendo kid. I had a Nintendo. Everybody I knew had a Nintendo as well. But there were some people starting to eyeball Sega when the Genesis came out. And that was a big deal. So I knew I had to make my choice and that I had to choose wisely, right? So I bought all the magazines I could find, EGM, GamePro, like you said, and just went through all those coming soon. Kind of, Genesis was probably already out, so I had an opportunity to review some of the games for that. And I was salivating at some of those arcade ports that they were getting, man. I was really impressed with that. Arcade experience coming home was a big deal for me. And I knew Genesis was getting it right out of the gate. And I wasn't going to discount anybody. I was looking at NEC too, that bonk, the thing. I was actually really looking interesting to me as well. But they were kind of the outsider looking in, right? And I was really close between those three. I actually kept NEC in the mix for a long time, but went with Nintendo, went back to Super Nintendo, waited for that one to actually release. I mowed lawns to save up money for it. When it came out, I put it on layaway. I didn't quite have the money for it. But I put it on layaway on day one and paid it out for like the next probably 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. So I didn't get to actually play it except for those little kiosks in Walmart. But that really kind of set me down the path from going to Nintendo to Super Nintendo to make me a Nintendo guy. I think most of us, the decision that we made there at that point kind of set us down the path of either being Nintendo or Sega, right? Kind of type of thing. But this whole thing was so much fun. I think it was critically important, like I said earlier, when you think about it. The console wars kind of remind me of like Terminator 2, where Cyberdyne finds the Terminator 1 arm in the machine and they reverse engineer it and they get like 50, 60, 70 years advanced from that. I feel like the console years probably got us 40 or 50 years of natural progression in one like roughly decade, because it was such an arms race. Everybody was trying to one up each other with the graphics. You had the CD technology. Everybody wanted to be with that first. The whole bit wars, how many bits was this and that. So just good times, fun times. And I think it was overall good for gaming. We wouldn't be where we are right now today in gaming, as far ahead as we are right now, without the console wars really kind of amping that whole thing up.
That's awesome. Good job. Yep. I agree totally. Yeah, some really great points there, Jason. Dad Racer.
Well, I'm definitely the youngest one of the group, born in 84. So at the start of what we're talking about here between the Genesis and the Super Nintendo, I was probably only 6 years old, somewhere between 6 and 10 years old during the console wars, in the era that we're talking about. So we didn't really have strong feelings, for like, as far as competitive, competitive feelings towards one console or the other. All of my friends were Nintendo kids. I was a Nintendo kid. Like I said, I didn't know anybody that had a Sega Genesis, except for my neighbor on the other side of the block. I'd frequently go to his house, had the Sega Genesis. It was my only experience ever with the Sega Genesis until, literally just last year, I picked one up as a collector. All these years without Sega. And that's where I got my first experience playing games like Joe Montana Football and the Streets of Rage games and Sonic the Hedgehog games. And it was different, I'm not sure I liked it more than Super Nintendo. Chris touched on a great attribute of the Super Nintendo with co-op play, fighting games. I'd always have friends coming over and going over to a friend's house to play Super Mario Kart, the battle mode there, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter 2. And those are games you could have played on the Sega Genesis, but nobody had them except for my neighbor, like I said. So eventually I got my taste of the Genesis from my neighbor. And I don't know what year it was, but it must have been some holiday season. My parents got me a Sega Game Gear because we started to take road trips and things like this. I never had a Game Boy. Still to this day, never had an original Game Boy.
Wow.
I have some Game Boy games that I play on other systems, but did not have a Game Boy. And I don't know why that is. I think it was just more appealing at the time. I got the color graphics, got the games that I'm familiar with from my neighbor. So I had 6 games, the Sonic games, I had the Streets of Rage games and a couple other games, but really, really enjoyed the Game Gear, all because of that little taste I got from my neighbor around the block from the Sega Genesis. And I still to this day have a soft spot for the Game Gear for that reason, but still a Nintendo guy through and through. But I am starting to dabble in the Sega Genesis for the last year. Really, really enjoying it.
Awesome.
Those are dark arts, my friend. Dark arts.
Yeah, and And yeah, well, I'll save my point till after we get to old school games and stories. Lyndon, do you remember anything about the console wars?
Oh man. So I've talked about this before on the channel. My first console was the Tandy Color computer. And then a couple years later, my grandparents got me the NES. And that's all there was for a few years for me, as far as home consoles. But when the Genesis come out, I did not pay it a lot of attention because, like I said, I had the NES. All my friends had Nintendos. Everybody at school, you traded Nintendo games at school, on the bus. The one thing I had that I was very fortunate to be a part of was my grandparents' campground with the arcade right there.
Yep.
So when this come out, I'm like,
Played in the arcade.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, the arcades were even ahead of what the Genesis was.
Yes.
And I believe my daily access with an arcade right in my front yard, basically growing up, and me spending every day of every summer there, in and out of it, and trying to find ways to make money to play more arcade games. I didn't even give this a second notion, because I remember you go to the rental store and there'd be 100 Nintendo games you could pick from to rent, and there might be 15 or 20 for the Sega Genesis. So as it went on, you have to give Sega credit for their advertising, because as they started building Steam, everybody started noticing. Some of my friends, one or two, all of a sudden they got a Genesis. And all of a sudden I got 5 or 6 friends with a Genesis. I spend the night with them. I'm playing this new game called Sonic the Hedgehog. He's flying around the screen doing loops and stuff. Oh, wait a minute here. But the one thing I did have that sold me and kept me away from it was Nintendo Power. And early in 1990, they showed this. When they started talking about the Super Nintendo and started showing clips of this new Mario game that was coming and a new Zelda game, I don't need to know anything else. There's no need for me to try to talk my parents into getting the Genesis, because I'm going to have the Super Nintendo. I got to start working on that. So that is why I just didn't pay it much attention. And I'm kind of glad I didn't, because as a collector now, I've had a Genesis for a long time. It's one of the systems my wife brought over when we were first dating, and we realized it was getting serious. She started bringing stuff over to my house. She brought her old Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and her Sega Genesis, and she had a handful of games for it. Immediately I started collecting for it, and it's been a blast, because even still, for me to this day, the Genesis library, there's a lot of unknowns for me. I'm still finding hidden gems that apply to me anyway. The games, I've never seen that before. That looks awesome. And you finally find it or get it somewhere. Yeah. How did I miss this? Why did I not play this back in the day? Why? But it was a lot of fun back then. Like I said, I had a handful of friends that did have a Genesis, but I don't never remember it being too competitive. Everybody saying, oh, this is better, this is better. Everybody was just glad to have anything back then, pretty much. So I guess that was my experience. The arcades kept me away from it really for a while, because they were still better at that time.
Yeah,
they were already
absolutely.
more advanced than what Sega come out with. So and the Super Nintendo as well.
Everything back then was chasing that arcade experience, man. The arcade was king back then. Absolutely. And even, the Sega Genesis brought a lot of arcade games home right off the bat. That was their thing.
Yeah.
But the arcade game was still just a little better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think you guys made some really good points on the Super Nintendo as far as like 2-player simultaneous, like was it Final Fight? You could play Oh, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That was single player, but I was
About
thinking
that.
of the Sega CD game. Okay, I got you. Sorry about that. Yeah, Final Fight. Anyway, my first console, the Atari 2600. Second one was the NES. And I loved my NES, did. But you talk about advertising campaigns and the Sega advertising campaigns. Man, that was kind of when my eyes opened up, and I'm like, so there's bits, and the NES is 8-bit, and this Genesis is going to be 16-bit. That's like double, man. It's going to be twice as good. Awesome, man. And so, yeah, I went up to, it was Greeley, Colorado. JCPenney sold Sega Genesis back in the day, back then. And I'm older than you guys. Jason and I are kind of the elder statesman here, but
Wait a minute now.
No, actually, I'm still young, Joel.
are you okay? Yeah, I'm sorry, man. You're what, in your 30s now? So yeah. But so I was kind of looking for edgier games, and the Sega Genesis looked edgier. Man, it looked more appealing to adults. And one of the big things that sold me on the Sega Genesis are sports games. Back then, sports games were cool. And when Madden football came out, John Madden football, there was no number. It was the very first one, came out on the Sega Genesis. That was one of the few first games that I had. And man, I could not get enough of it. You know, the sports games to me just played better on the Sega Genesis. They might not have looked as good as the Super NES, but the Super NES came out, and honestly, I was pretty content with my Sega Genesis. I was more into just getting more games for my Genesis than worried too much about the Super NES. So, yeah, I'll tell you what, my cousin Thomas, guy that I gamed with, him and my nephew Chad, we all were Sega Genesis guys. And so it was kind of different. My perspective is a little different than your guys's. I was kind of in the Sega Genesis bubble. You know, you guys had all your friends that were Nintendo guys, and we were into the Sega Genesis, man. It just, it was awesome back then. And you know, you brought up Super Mario World, so pretty good game, and it's almost as good as Super Mario Brothers 3. Almost. It's almost that good. But anyway, so some pretty good points and some good memories. So we're going to kind of switch it up now. We're going to go a little pop quiz here.
Oh.
So think of some games, because I can think of some, and I'll kind of start it off here a little bit, because you know, it's not really that much of a pop quiz to me. I've had time to think about this, but you know, back in the day, I didn't have a Genesis and a Super NES when they were first, you know, out. I might have had I had my Sega Genesis, maybe 5 to 8 games, you know, at once. And so there was some games that I saw on the Super NES that I was wishing that I did have. And Super Mario Brothers World, of course, the Zelda game, those IPs that Nintendo had, Super Metroid, you know, those things I always wanted those games. So if you guys can think, are there any games that you've either discovered now, or you remember back in the day when you had you kind of made your choice for which console you would own? Were there some games that you kind of had your eye on and kind of like, man, I wish, you know, I do wish I could play that game every night? And we're going to start with Jason here.
Yeah, this is pretty easy for me. I mean, there was 3, speaking specifically about when the Genesis came out, when I made my determination that I was going to go with Super Nintendo, there were 3 games that were really, I knew were going to sting to leave behind. And that was Golden Axe, Altered Beast, and the last, well, let's talk about this for a second. So Altered Beast, I'll be unapologetic for my love about Altered Beast, man. I think that's a really good game. I know it gets a lot of hate these days, but you got to remember how important that port was when it came out. It was such a huge deal to have, like you said, Joe, they weren't 100%, but it was like a 94, 95% perfect clone of the arcade game. That's pretty darn good. And I really enjoyed that game. And it really is what turned my head to thinking about maybe actually getting a Genesis. So that was a good one. Golden Axe was another one. Yeah. And the third one was Revenge of Shinobi. I was a huge fan of Shinobi in the arcade. And I couldn't wait to play what was kind of like the pseudo sequel to it. come into the home systems. And when I finally got my hands on all those games, man, I played them like in depth as a retro gamer coming back and just, I just, gorged on nothing but Revenge of Shinobi, Golden Axe, and Altered Beast for a while and just took all those in. So those were the big three for me. And then later, and those were early on in Sega's life. And then obviously the Sonic games later, right? So that would probably be my list right there of ones that I knew I was going to miss out on from missing out on the Genesis kind of world over there, right?
Yeah, and if you think about that, I remember, I bought the Model 1, the launch edition with Altered Beast. And when I plugged that in and saw them big old sprites on the screen, I'm like, man, that
Yeah. People don't
That's
give
cool.
enough credit to that moment and how important that game was at that particular time. It might be
Agreed.
the most impressive first arcade port to come home and be that close out of all of gaming.
Yeah.
We never had that until that day with that game at that moment in time. So something special there for that particular game.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's awesome. All right, Mark.
Well, I think I guess at the time I would have liked to have played the Sonic games, the Streets of Rage games, like I said, because I had exposure to that at my neighbor's place. But later on, as an adult, come to be gravitating towards more shooters. And although there's probably one or two that I enjoy in the Super Nintendo, I will admit, as far as shooters go, Sega Genesis is a lot more capable machine. And I'm really enjoying games like Twin Cobra. I love Twin Cobra. Playing a little bit of Truxton.
Yeah.
And I know there's just a vast library of shooters that I've yet to discover. And so that I'm kind of interested in getting more into those actually nowadays. But back then I would have said, gosh, I wish I could play, Sonic the Hedgehog, things like that. Yeah.
Sonic was one of those games too that was really different to me.
Yeah.
The first time I saw it, it was pretty eye-opening.
Also, it would have been nice. It would have been nice to have a 16-bit beat 'em up.
Yeah.
That's co-op.
Yeah.
Turtles in Time. It did have Turtles in Time back then. But
That's all right. That's okay.
But yeah. I still like Final Fight more. But yeah, the fact that it's not co-op is major thumbs down. That's a big shortcoming that I would have liked to have with Streets of Rage.
We
Yeah.
had that really weak Double Dragon entry too for the Super Nintendo. So,
Yeah, you know what? To this day, never played it.
yeah,
Never
it's pretty
played it.
underwhelming. You're not missing a whole lot.
Yeah.
Same here. Never played it. Yeah. And it does seem like so there was always kind of bonuses. Like I agree, Chris. They're a lot alike now when you look at them. Some of the capabilities, but it seemed like sports games and shooters on the Sega Genesis, your role-playing games, platformers on the Super NES. All right. Well, Lyndon from Old School Games and Stories.
I always wished I had the Sonic games because those were the games when I would go to my few friends that had a Genesis. That's really the only ones I remember playing is the Sonic games and Mortal Kombat when that come out. And of course, the Genesis had blood and the Super Nintendo didn't. Man, come on, what were they thinking? But so I didn't even know what all I had missed back then. As a collector now, I found all kinds of good games that are just so good. Speaking of space shooters, Mark, here's one called Soul Dees. Super good.
All right.
Super hard.
I got my eye. I got my eye on that. I'll have to take a note.
And then I didn't know there was a championship program
Yeah.
for the Genesis. That's basically the same game, just with better graphics. And then for me, as a collector, one of the funnest things has been getting the Sega CD and the 32X to go on that Genesis.
Yeah.
I never knew anybody that had either one of those. I never got to play that until just within the last year, making a trade with 123 Gamer Man to get both of those. And I'm having a blast with that. Oh man, and I just got the Justifier from him, and I'm looking for some games for that Sega CD. I want to play some of those cool FMV games. And, hey, Chris.
Yeah.
I couldn't help noticing there, man, on your intro.
That was unique, wasn't it?
You pulled out two Justifiers, and one of them was that pretty rare pink one.
Yeah, you ever seen one of these before?
Not in person. I have not.
Mm.
You know what's kind of funny? At the end of it here, it daisy chains into the other one. It looks just like the old landline plug
Whoa.
for your phone. Remember those? Let's see what happens when I plug this in. Oh, yeah, there's a dial tone. Hello. Oh, you know what, guys? I'm sorry. I got to take this call. But there's somebody here who can take my place the rest of the way,
Sweet.
right?
Well, this is kind of
No.
different. I don't know that we've ever ran into anything like this before, but
We were just talking
Any
about how
of
we
you
don't
guys-
have like any technical hiccups or anything like that.
right. And we never really edit anything. I mean, we just pretty much shoot it on the fly and go.
Check out that
Yeah,
wall of
back there.
Nintendo.
I know, man. Look at that wall.
That's awesome.
I
Y'all
think
ever seen that
Mark
being
doesn't he call?
justified before?
No, I've never seen that in person ever, and I never knew that the end of it was like that. That's
I didn't know that.
Just
Yeah.
keeps going and going and going.
yeah.
What if
I
you
think
do Area 51,
there you go.
two.
Whoa.
Oh,
Hey.
whoa,
Hey, what's up?
whoa.
You know, I think the tables might have got a little more balanced here.
What do we got going on here, guys?
What's up, Duff?
Hey. Oh, that's kind of cool. This dude's got some shades on just like me.
What's up, Duff?
That's rad, bro.
Looking good.
Thank you. You too.
Have
Yeah.
you been drinking, Duff?
I had a couple of cases. Washed it down with a 40.
Glendon's got one.
Yeah, it looks like.
Oh, you need one more?
Yeah, I'm dry, bro. Come on, hook me up.
All right, here you go, brother.
Thanks.
Perfect. There you go.
That's refreshing. Oh, dude, is that a shark tooth?
Yeah, man.
You have any idea how sharp those things are, man? It's like right by your neck. You could cut yourself. Man, you live dangerously. Awesome. Oh, that guy looks kind of cool. What's your name, man?
Only kinda. Jason, nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Hey, Joel, I got a question for you.
What's up, brother?
Why do you call yourself a poor man when you have 3 televisions? It's like you seem like you're doing pretty well, you know?
Well, I didn't say I bought them.
Ah, I see. The old 5-finger discount, huh?
Well, you know, Lyndon's wife brings over Sega Genesis games. Maybe mine brought me TVs. Yeah.
I had a
pretty good.
Sega Genesis when I was a kid. I still play that thing every day.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I play it every day too. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
the
little
Sega
bit.
Genesis was extreme, man. Were you kind of an extreme kid?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I'm still extreme, bro.
You got to be
Yeah.
extreme to play the Sega Genesis every day, man.
Yeah, no doubt. That's a grittier system for sure.
It is, and you know that it does what the Nintendo don't. Had
Yeah.
to get that
it-
in there.
You had to do it.
Duff sent it to me in a text
Hey,
message.
Joel, we got
actually.
to get a question in for Duff while we're here, man. We
All
can't
right,
miss this
do it.
opportunity.
Ask him a question. Go ahead.
Oh no, Duff, you want to give us your thoughts on the console wars, man? Do you
There
remember
you go.
that? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I definitely went with the Sega Genesis because did you know that they sold 30 million units on that thing?
Wow,
That's like 600% more than the Super Nintendo
it's true.
Classic Edition.
Hey, it's a Super Nintendo Classic Edition.
You know,
That's
the
true.
biggest thing too, like the games came in these like clamshells, and you
Yeah.
could
Oh,
put
yeah.
your manual in there. Like, look at that. Well, this one's not complete, but you know, you get the idea, right?
I do like
And-
the clamshells.
Yeah, me too. And you know what else they had? Madden games.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, yeah, everybody else has Madden games, but didn't you ever think to yourself, we could use more Madden games? Like,
Yeah.
Genesis had that. They had more Madden games. They even had a series of Madden games called Sports Talk Football. There were 2. Like, can you imagine? What did they have on the Super Nintendo? Like, what sports games? It was like Michael Jordan, Chaos in the Windy City. You don't even play basketball.
That's
We got Shaq Fu too, didn't we? Did we get Shaq Fu?
Yeah, we got a double dose of Shaq Fu on the Genesis and the Super
Yeah,
Nintendo.
true.
But the Genesis had all those celebrity endorsements and stuff.
It's
like
true.
Tony La Russa baseball. Oh wait, that's Tommy Lasorda.
That the guy
here
from the
we go.
diet ads?
Here we go. Tony La
There you
Russa
go. Yeah.
Bingo.
baseball. Then they also had Chris La Cucaracha baseball. I don't know who that guy is.
Very famous.
And then, of course, everybody's favorite Speedy Rodent. Awesome Possum kicked Dr. Machino's butt. And you know what? Like, what could be more 90s than this? Look at that, And it says right here that it includes a free comic book. Let's check this out. Okay, there's no comic book in here.
There might be.
It's just the manual. What the heck?
This is sort of comic book like in there.
Okay. No, I'll win you guys over here. You just hold on. You know what else I think of that's like just so much tude? It's like black plastic. Look at that, man. No discoloration there. And who wants to fumble around with all those buttons? When
Yeah.
you can get away with 3.
That's what I was
Right.
saying.
Totally in your face, man.
Just don't play the fighting games. I know there's blood, but I mean the controller doesn't really get the job done. But just never mind that. It's just so sleek and cool looking.
Absolutely right.
And you know what else was pretty awesome? Look at this. They call that the battleship mode right there. This thing has dust on it. Do you know why? Because it doesn't work. None of them do. But look at how cool it looks.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to work.
Yeah, it doesn't have to do anything.
Come
It
on.
just stands there and looks pretty. Sorry, man. I got dust all over myself. from
That's
that.
all good. So do
You
you?
know what else Sega does that Nintendo don't? They plagiarize. I mean, yeah, okay, you got Final Fight, Final Fantasy, but I'd like to introduce you to Streets of Rage and Phantasy Star. Why make a work of art when you can simply paint a mustache on Whistler's mother? Like, let somebody else do the heavy lifting, right?
Work
I
smarter,
agree,
not
man.
harder.
I agree. I think
I
you're
like
onto
it.
something. Yeah. Joel, I think he's onto something.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about this.
So you're saying Sega or Super Nintendo was like the GoBots to Transformers?
Well, let's not get carried away because GoBots was the original.
That's right. This guy's got a good head on his shoulders right here.
Now hang on, Duff.
Yeah,
Did you pick on Nintendo kids?
still do.
It's too easy.
I don't know how Joel convinced me to hang out with all you squares, but
Yeah.
whatever. I had nothing better to do.
Well, we're glad you joined in nonetheless.
I am.
Thanks.
It's the first time we've had, another straight-minded, straight shooter join the show. So I'm pretty happy with it.
2 guest stars in one show.
Yeah, can't beat that, man. Cannot beat that at all. So,
Why, who was the other star?
Oh,
well, we
never
had
mind.
another guy on, but he was pretty good, but yeah, a little boring.
He's
Isn't
low
it-
key. He's low key.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of
Plus-
low key.
Plus, he made me sit in front of all these Nintendo games.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
man. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
The Nintendo guy, you wouldn't have liked him.
Lame.
So do you feel like you missed out on anything not owning a Super NES back in the day? Duff.
Yeah, a controller
Yeah.
with shoulder buttons on it.
Yeah. That could be a little overrated, but
Plus, you know what I always thought was like, Yeah, we got a Thomas the Tank Engine game on Genesis, but that one on the SNES was just vastly superior, you know?
Pretty sweet. I have to give you that one. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that you joined us tonight, man. Pretty
Thanks
fun.
for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a little worried because you're almost a little too extreme for the round table, but you fit in perfectly, man. You did great. So
Yeah.
Good to have you here. And if you see Chris, let him know thank you that he took the invite and showed up on the show and took part.
I'll let him know. He's at a phone call right now, so yeah, he'll figure it out.
That's true. And what other light gun that can you take a phone call on? I mean, that's Sega only right there, man. That was pretty interesting about that cord too. I've never seen that before. So, well, I tell you what, I think this is a wrap. Thank you guys very much. I'm going to have a link to everybody's channel that's on the Roundtable in the description. And we want to thank Duff and Chris for showing up tonight, man, and taking part. I don't know. You might need one more of those.
I'm game.
Just one more 6-pack.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you had as good a time as we did, and I hope you have a great and safe rest of your day.